You know Keanu Reeves, the humble, quiet star of movies like John Wick and The Matrix. But what happens when he's put on the spot, live on national television, by a rude talk show host? What happens when the host tries to embarrass him in front of millions? Most celebrities would lose their cool. But what Keanu does instead? It left the entire audience completely speechless. Stay tuned, because this is one moment you won't forget. The lights were bright. The cameras were rolling. The audience was buzzing with excitement. It was supposed to be a fun evening, a famous late-night talk show with one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, Keanu Reeves. Keanu had agreed to this interview while promoting his latest blockbuster. He walked onto the stage, dressed in a simple black suit, his usual calm and humble smile on his face. As he entered, the crowd erupted in cheers, clapping enthusiastically. Keanu waved politely, gave a small bow, and took his seat across from the host. The atmosphere was electric. People were thrilled to see their favorite star in such an informal setting. At first, everything seemed normal. The host, a man known for his sharp wit and sometimes cutting humor, began with light questions about the movie, the stunts, and Keanu's preparation for the role. The audience laughed and cheered at Keanu's humble and often self-deprecating responses. He spoke softly, with sincerity, his tone warm and thoughtful, a refreshing change from the usual celebrity bravado. But within minutes, something felt off. The host, perhaps trying to liven things up or score a viral moment, began shifting his tone. The questions became less friendly and more pointed. It was subtle at first, a sarcastic remark here, a snide comment there, but gradually it became obvious that the host was setting Keanu up for ridicule. The energy in the room shifted. Some audience members exchanged uneasy glances. Then came the moment that caught everyone off guard. The host leaned forward, smirking, and said in a mocking tone, "Keanu, you've been called too serious, too quiet, too slow for Hollywood. Some people wonder, what's wrong with you?" The audience gasped. There was a ripple of discomfort in the room. A few awkward chuckles escaped, as some weren't sure if it was a joke or an insult. The host sat back in his chair, clearly expecting Keanu to either get defensive or laugh along. But Keanu didn't flinch. He remained perfectly still, his expression calm and composed. He looked the host in the eye with that quiet confidence that only someone with deep self-awareness can carry. For a moment, there was silence, thick, heavy. All eyes were on Keanu. The cameras zoomed in, catching the slightest details of his face. And then, with a gentle smile and in a steady voice, Keanu responded, "Nothing is wrong. I just try to be present. And being present doesn't always mean being loud." The room was still. No one moved. The audience seemed to collectively hold their breath. The words hung in the air, powerful in their simplicity. The host shifted in his seat, caught off guard by the grace in Keanu's response. It was not the reaction he had expected. No anger, no embarrassment, just calm wisdom. The audience began to applaud, softly at first, then louder. Keanu's poise had turned an uncomfortable moment into something inspiring. And in that instant, one thing became clear to everyone watching. This wasn't just another celebrity interview. This was a masterclass in humility, strength, and the power of presence. For a few long seconds, the entire studio was wrapped in silence. Not a whisper, not a cough, just pure anticipation. Every pair of eyes in the room was fixed on Keanu Reeves, waiting to see how he would respond. The audience, the crew behind the cameras, even the host, everyone was locked in that moment. The host leaned in slightly toward Keanu, a sly grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. It was the kind of posture that suggested he was hoping for a reaction, a defensive comeback, maybe even an emotional outburst that would give him the kind of viral clip late-night shows thrive on. A dramatic moment. A celebrity meltdown. The kind of headline that would dominate the internet the next morning. But instead of anger or defensiveness, Keanu did something no one quite expected. He simply smiled, a calm, peaceful smile that seemed to radiate a deep sense of inner stillness. It wasn't a forced grin, nor was it an attempt to brush off the remark. It was genuine. There was no trace of ego, no hint of irritation. Just presence. Leaning ever so slightly toward the microphone, in that soft, grounded voice he is known for, Keanu spoke. "Nothing is wrong. I just try to be present. And being present doesn't always mean being loud. The words floated into the silent room like a gentle breeze. Simple, thoughtful, yet carrying more weight than any loud rebuttal could have. For a moment, the entire audience seemed to exhale, the spell of tension momentarily broken. Some nodded quietly. Others exchanged looks, impressed by the actor's composure. The host gave a quick, nervous chuckle, clearly trying to shift the mood back to something lighter. But it was obvious, the crowd wasn't with him this time. They had felt the undercurrent in the room. They had seen how the conversation was turning, and it didn't sit right with them. Still, the host pressed on, unwilling to completely let go of his earlier tone. He leaned back and, with a mocking smirk, said, "Come on, Keanu, you're like the Buddha of action movies. Slow, calm, serious. Do you ever just let loose? Have fun." There was a ripple of uncomfortable laughter from the audience. Nervous, unsure. Some weren't sure whether to play along or stay silent. It was clear to many watching, both in the studio and on the cameras, that this was no longer harmless banter. The jokes were starting to cross a line. What began as playful teasing was now edging into the realm of disrespect. Yet through it all, Keanu remained poised. There was no shift in his expression, no hardening of his tone. He didn't tense up. He didn't bite back. He simply sat there, calm and composed, his very presence serving as a quiet but powerful response. In a world where many would have snapped or lashed out, Keanu chose grace. He didn't need to raise his voice to be heard. His calmness spoke louder than any words could. And then, something happened that no one in the room had anticipated. Keanu leaned forward once more, a slight movement, deliberate and composed. This time, though, there was a subtle shift in his energy. His voice, still calm and gentle, now carried an undeniable weight, as though every word was being drawn from a place of deep experience and understanding. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it demanded attention. "You know," he began, his gaze steady, his tone unwavering, "sometimes, in this world, being quiet is a choice." The words landed softly, but their meaning echoed throughout the silent studio. The audience, previously uncertain of how to react to the host's jabs, now leaned in. The shift in the room was palpable. "In a noisy room," Keanu continued, "someone has to listen." That simple truth resonated with everyone present. You could almost feel the collective breath being held, as though no one wanted to interrupt what they knew was becoming a moment far more profound than any scripted TV banter. Keanu didn't stop there. His next words cut deeper, revealing the wisdom that comes not just from fame, but from personal hardship and growth. When people try to lift themselves up by pulling others down, that says more about them than about the person they're mocking. There it was, calm, respectful, but unmistakably direct. Without naming names, without raising his voice or showing any anger, Keanu had subtly called out the host's behavior in the most elegant way possible. No need for confrontation. No harsh words. Just truth. Now the audience was fully captivated. You could hear a pin drop. Every eye was locked on Keanu, every ear tuned in to his words. Even those backstage, watching the monitors, stood still, sensing the gravity of the moment unfolding live. Then Keanu, with a quiet breath, continued. "I've faced loss. I've faced pain. Life teaches you things, like kindness. And sometimes, when you've seen the dark, you choose to be the light for others." His voice remained soft, but the emotions behind those words were undeniable. He wasn't speaking as an actor or a celebrity. He was speaking as a human being, one who had known sorrow and found compassion in its aftermath. "And maybe," he added, his lips curving into the faintest smile, "that looks serious to some people." At that precise moment, something remarkable happened. Without prompting, spontaneous applause erupted from the audience. What had started as scattered claps quickly swelled into a heartfelt ovation. Many in the crowd rose to their feet, unable to contain their admiration for the authenticity and grace Keanu had just displayed. The cameras panned across the studio, capturing audience members nodding in agreement, some wiping tears from their eyes. It was a genuine, human moment, rare for live television. Meanwhile, the host shifted awkwardly in his chair, clearly unsettled. He hadn't expected such depth, nor the audience's overwhelming reaction. The mood of the room had changed, and it was no longer his to control. After a long, heavy pause, the host, visibly trying to steady himself, leaned slightly toward the camera and forced a chuckle. Okay, didn't mean to get so deep tonight, he quipped, attempting to steer the show back to lighter ground. His voice carried a mix of forced cheer and nervousness, the earlier confidence clearly shaken by Keanu's graceful handling of the situation and the overwhelming response from the audience. Keanu, ever composed, met the host's attempt with another one of his signature smiles, this one warmer, more open, a smile that seemed to convey both understanding and kindness. "It's okay," Keanu replied softly, with just the right touch of humor in his tone. "Sometimes, life surprises us." The room let out a collective breath, tension easing. But Keanu, with his natural sense of timing, wasn't finished just yet. With a gentle twinkle in his eye and perfect comedic rhythm, he added, "Now, you were going to ask me about the movie, right? Before we started doing philosophy on late-night TV." And with that single line, delivered with humility and wit, the room erupted into genuine laughter. It wasn't nervous this time. It wasn't awkward. It was full, joyful, and appreciative. The audience laughed with Keanu, not at anyone. The shift in the energy of the entire studio was undeniable. What had moments ago felt uncomfortable and tense now felt light, human, connected. The host, catching the moment, relaxed visibly. The earlier tension in his body language softened. He leaned back in his chair with an appreciative grin, nodding. "You're absolutely right," he said, this time with a more genuine tone. "Let's talk about this movie of yours, because honestly, we've all been dying to hear about it." And from that point forward, the rest of the interview took on an entirely different tone. Gone were the sarcastic barbs and pointed jokes. The host, humbled by the earlier exchange, kept his questions thoughtful, and Keanu, now more at ease with both the host and the audience, responded with openness and charm. He shared behind-the-scenes stories from the film set, tales of intense stunt work, funny moments with the crew, unexpected challenges, all delivered in his signature grounded and modest style. The audience laughed, applauded, and connected with Keanu more deeply than if the interview had remained the usual surface-level Hollywood chatter. Toward the end of the show, Keanu even joined in for a spontaneous segment with the house band, playfully interacting with the musicians, much to the delight of the crowd. His willingness to engage, to lighten the mood, to connect, it only further endeared him to everyone watching. And yet, despite how smoothly the rest of the evening unfolded, that earlier moment, it stayed with everyone. The honesty, the grace, the way Keanu had handled negativity with kindness and composure. It was the kind of moment that people would talk about long after the show ended, a rare glimpse of wisdom and humanity broadcast live to the world. When the episode finally aired a few nights later, the internet lit up almost instantly. Within hours, a short clip of Keanu's calm but powerful response during the interview began making the rounds on social media platforms. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, it was everywhere. People clipped the exact moment when Keanu leaned forward, delivered his wise words about choosing to be present, about kindness in a noisy world, and about the strength in quiet composure. The video spread like wildfire. By the next morning, it had racked up millions of views. It was being shared not just by fans of Keanu or movie buffs, but by life coaches, mindfulness practitioners, motivational pages, and even corporate leaders who saw it as a perfect example of emotional intelligence in action. It wasn't just a celebrity moment anymore, it had become a lesson. Comments began flooding in under every post and video. "Such wisdom from Keanu. That's how you handle negativity, with grace. A masterclass in staying calm under pressure. This is why he's the best, not just an actor, but a human being." Many people praised the way Keanu had not reacted with anger or defensiveness, but instead responded with quiet dignity. Others admired his ability to defuse a tense situation and even guide the conversation back to positivity and humor. For many, it was a refreshing reminder that strength doesn't have to be loud or aggressive. Sometimes, it's found in patience and understanding. Articles were written across entertainment blogs and even mainstream news outlets, dissecting the moment. Headlines read, "Keanu teaches a masterclass in humility," "Why Keanu's interview response went viral," and "The Power of Presence, What We Can Learn from Keanu Reeves." The story resonated far beyond Hollywood gossip. It had touched a universal nerve. Even the talk show host himself couldn't ignore the overwhelming public reaction. In a later interview on a podcast, he openly admitted, Keanu humbled me that night. I learned something about respect and presence. Sometimes, the nicest guy in the room really is the strongest. That acknowledgement earned the host some respect back, but by then, it was clear. The lasting impression from that evening would always be Keanu's poise and wisdom. And that, my friends, is why Keanu Reeves is so loved, not just for his movies, not just for the incredible stunts or iconic roles, but for the person he is when the cameras aren't scripted. It's his heart, his humility, his ability to walk into a difficult moment and choose kindness over ego, grace over confrontation. Because in a world full of noise, where negativity often gets the loudest voice, Keanu Reeves chooses another path: kindness, calm, and grace. And maybe, just maybe, that's why he continues to inspire millions around the world. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring content. And of course, tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.